My name is Helen del Guidice, and I'm the curator of exhibitions and collections at the Miller Art Museum in Sturgeon Bay. First, thank you to my audience for being here this evening. I really appreciate that coming out on this night. So this is the 11th edition of the Studio Door, and this evening I sit down in conversation with Federico Pardo, our guest. Federico is a Colombian-born biologist, filmmaker, director, cinematographer, goes on, and he's also a Nat Geo explorer. He got his bachelor's degree from the Universidad de los Andes and his master's degree in environmental filmmaking, is that correct? At Montana State University. He specializes in natural history and environmental and human stories. He has a long laundry list of prestigious clients and organizations that he has worked with all over the world, teaming up with conservation efforts for wildlife teams across the globe. And he's also received 2 Emmy Awards. Maybe we'll talk about that and see what films those are for. So please welcome our guest this evening, Federico Pardo. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I guess you didn't have to play the cold.
Yeah. I want to also mention that you're one of York County's newest residents.
Yes.
Yes.
2 months ago.
Yeah.
So happy to be here. Happy to be part of the community. So thank you.
Yeah. So Federico, I want to kind of start at the beginning and start with maybe how you became. What came first, biology or photography and filmmaking? Where did your interest begin?
Yes. Biology definitely came first. When I was finishing high school, I thought maybe I want to be a doctor, but then I realized, well, maybe there's a lot of people caring for humans. There's an opportunity to take care of nature, wildlife, animals. And biology had always been, or wildlife has always been a big thing in my head. I loved animals, traveling, exploring, this and that. Snakes were always a big passion. So I decided to go into biology first. And then towards the end of my undergraduate degree, I realized that I didn't want to follow what they call the publish or perish route. If you don't become a super experienced researcher in a specific field, then your career may perish. That's a
so there's sort of an academic option built in.
Yeah, it's like you either become a ultra PhD and talk with a handful of colleagues and peers and produce top science, or what? So I decided to go the outreach route rather than producing science, communicating science. And I have been taking photographs. I have taken some photo classes early in 2001, right before studying biology. So then when I was a college student, my camera was my partner, my lover, everything. Everywhere I went, my camera was there. And that evolved into a passion for storytelling, communicating science, doing science outreach, and documentary filming.
And so how did it start that you, what is the process between graduating college with this passion and these ideas for outreach and becoming like a Nat Geo explorer being sent all over the world on expedition? What are the steps in between there?
Oh my God. Hard to tell, but if there are any fixed steps, I would say the first one is follow your passion. Because at least back then, being a photographer wasn't that easy in the sense that digital became the main thing around 2005, 2004. So until then, photography was slides or film, and it's expensive, and gear, and this and that. So what I mean by following your passion was like, regardless if it was film or digital, I always had my camera, my big lens, carrying it. I always say, if you want a camera, you're going to be a photographer, prepare to be a qualified porter.
Right.
Because it's 9% carrying and 10% photographing.
Right.
Or filming.
And then people get to know you. You're that guy with the camera.
Yeah, you're the guy who doesn't bring books that brings cameras.
Right.
So yes, follow your passion for sure. Also, I think something I tell other people is like, being a good professional in your field, because you may be the best camera person or the best photographer around, but if you're not pleasant to be around, Nobody wants to hang out with you in the middle of nowhere.
And you still have to show up, and you still have to be there on time.
Yeah, be there on time, with a good attitude, carrying the gear, taking good images, making good films, all that stuff, and being a good person all around, a good professional. So put the passion, be a nice guy or a nice woman. And also, well, of course, being a little talented. You know, your images need to hopefully deliver emotion or just whatever the client needs. So you can start making a living out of this. Otherwise, your client won't pay you for your work.
So I've looked through your website pretty thoroughly. I've watched a lot of your films. And by the way, when you get bored of Netflix, there's FedericoPardo.com. There is literally a bibliography of films that you have worked on, and there's one fascinating story after another. We'll get into that a little bit later, but definitely spend an evening on his website. But you do have a very specific style. There is something that, a signature in the way you're looking and translating that information through film or photography. Is that conscious, or is that talent, or did you develop that? Do you know exactly what that signature is?
I think it's a little bit of everything. I love the question because yes, when you approach a project, you try to do something new. You try to bring a fresh look or quote a few references that visual references that people that you've liked before or that you admire, and it starts evolving into more complex things or more simple things. And it's also difficult to answer because I tend to say that when you work on films or video, your brain thinks somehow, and when you do photography, your brain thinks differently. So it's like this effort of switching between, okay, I'm gonna do photos for this project I'm working on, or I'm gonna do this documentary film that needs, 50 minutes of footage, a story arc, climax, turning points. So it all evolves. It all has to do with image, storytelling, visual storytelling. And I can, looking back at what I've done and some of the images that I have here, I can easily think of or remember those moments and those references that I had in mind when I produced some of these work. So it's a constant evolution, and I guess I like that.
I mean, wildlife is one of those subjects. Kind of, someone once said to me, like, they would never paint a barn because how many barn paintings? Like, what could you possibly bring new to a barn painting, right? But then you see these incredible. And wildlife is a subject like that. There's so much wildlife photography and filmmaking that what can you bring new to it? But there is, I think, in looking at these films, I think the audience will agree that there's something there's a very fresh perspective that is signature to it.
Thank you, that's good. And I agree with you in the sense that when I was in Africa, I had never been until a few years ago. And before going, of course, I was like, okay, I want to do different things.
Right.
Of the continent that's been photographed the most, or the animals that are being filmed and photographed the most. So what do you do? Like, there's lines from every single angle with every single camera on every single lighting scenario. What do you do?
Right.
And I don't know if I got it right, but that's where my brain was.
Right.
It was like, let's tell a different story with a different aesthetic, and hopefully that comes through.
Yeah. I want to talk about what it's like being on expedition. So, from what I understand, and let's explain it to our audience, you get teamed up with wildlife conservation efforts. Not always, but that's one main mechanism that sends you out into the field, right?
Yes. There's different formats, but that's definitely one of them. And it's basically teams of researchers from different institutions, whether US-based institutions or Colombian institutions or wherever. They go out and do these research studies or surveys. For the most part, are what they call wildlife or biodiversity inventories.
Okay.
They go out to a specific location and count everything, any living thing that they find. Also study soils and people, but it's basically the ground base of information of biodiversity in a given location.
Yeah.
And I go up with them, and I team up with them, and I go and do the media part, films and photos. So that's one way. And the other way would be me pitching or developing my own science conservation stories and finding financing to go make them happen.
Right.
So not necessarily the same, two different ways to do wildlife stories. Both of them.
Two different ways to manage your career.
Yeah.
And develop your career.
Yeah,
and get your
for
name out there and get your projects done.
For sure, because
you have to be proactive in your career.
For sure.
Right?
Sure.
You
You have passion projects.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that I love and I want to do and pursue and support those. And others that I'm like, oh, I want to work with those people. They're doing pretty amazing.
Right.
Let's send them an email so we can get a budget together.
And that just offers such a wide variety of opportunities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love working for other scientists who are constantly looking for quote unquote a voice, or an outreach platform. Because scientists are now very aware of the importance of sharing their knowledge and sharing what they do with the world. And with all the social media these days, there's never enough content to share.
Right.
So I love learning from them, taking photos and films with them, and then putting them out there.
And being part of that.
Yeah.
So the audience is going to laugh at me a little bit with this question, but when you think about wildlife photographers or people out on expedition, it's like in my mind, it's like they're Indiana Jones. They're digging up the Temple of Doom. I've got this iconic kind of adventurer idea about them. Is that true? Are you like Indiana Jones out there? What is it like to be on expedition? What's the reality?
It is a little bit like that. I want to touch on two things here. One, I think the Indiana Jones, it's a great metaphor and a great reference. However, these days things have changed a little bit, and there's this strong push to decolonize science and storytelling, which means basically locals or people from the culture try to be part of the science-making process or the media-making process. So being Latino, Colombian, when I go to Latin America and join these expeditions, it's fun because I'm working with my culture, for example.
Right.
But it is in the sense of the reference. Yes, you go out there, you put your leather hat and your camel clothes and go get stung by thousands of mosquitoes at a time.
Fall in pits of snakes.
Yes.
Things like that.
Yes.
It
Eat rice with potatoes and pasta for a meal, and spend hundreds of hours hiking and carrying your gear, and letting know the world that you love it.
Yeah.
And sweating, but it's pretty much like that. And every expedition it's a little different, but there's hundreds of war stories, if you will, that are part of my profession.
Yeah. And then I want to thank you for bringing that about decolonizing, because I'm well aware of Indiana Jones' representation of museumship as well, which is working very hard at reorganizing its thinking and has a pretty shady past when it comes to that on certain levels. But we also talked recently with Dustin Renwick from Nat Geo, and this kind of came up too about how storytelling has changed with photography. And what you seem to be saying is that he was saying that one of Nat Geo's new modus operandi is to get people on the ground in their place to tell those stories, not send this guy from Washington, D.C. over there to interpret someone else's story, but to get those stories straight from the source and on the ground.
For sure, yeah. I think there's a saying around now, the parachuting journalist or photographer that just goes in and walks away with a handful of images that talk to a certain reality. And it's not that it's bad, because it's part of history, it's part of how the trade has evolved. It's just a matter of acknowledging how the story may change depending on the background of the photographer or the storyteller. And especially nowadays with so much contrasts in politics and race and gender issues, that I think it's important to hear fresh voices, especially from those in the ground that have something to say.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But yeah, I love it. It's part of the industry.
Do you have any favorite moments or moments that were just awe-inspiring for you on expedition?
Yes, I want to talk about that photo right there.
The tortoise?
The tortoise.
Okay.
That's a big one. I can talk about a few. But that one happened.
One of my favorite pictures that we're hanging on the exhibit right now.
Love it.
One of my top favorites.
That one happened recently in, that was January 2021 this year, in Galapagos Island, in Ecuador. And I joined a research expedition, scientists who were doing an inventory of tortoises in this island, or this remote part of an island in Galapagos, the volcanic part. It's actually a cell volcano in Isabel Island. And this volcano is maybe 3,000 feet above sea level, so it's not that high. But we needed to hike 50 miles to get to the rim, to the top, with all the gear, tents, and food, and heavy. And then you're at the rim of a volcano and looking for giant tortoises. What more surreal than that? It's just like.
Well, for the people online, you have this solitary tortoise in this Mars-like environment that looks absolutely molten. It looks like it's covered in sulfur,
Sulfur for sure.
And there's steam on the ground. It looks very chemically, and it's and I look at it and I wonder, what is this turtle doing out there? Like, what is he surviving on?
And it was exactly
alone in an alien planet.
It was exactly my reaction, because so we got to the top of the volcano, to the rims, with the researchers, and we had to do a survey for 5 days, counting all the tortoises. And the methodology was split into groups, and each group would cover a certain part of the volcano. So we followed this research team that went to the fumaroles, which was another 5-mile hike, completely drenched in water, intense. And then you're hiking in this crazy terrain with all the cameras and whatnot. And then you get to this place that it looks like the moon, or something that you've never seen before. Fumarole, sulfur, it smells like crazy. The ground is brown. The ground is warm. And walking tortoises all over the place. It's like, what the heck happened here? Like, these animals definitely got lost during evolution.
They took a wrong turn in evolution.
And ended up in this place and have evolved independently in the foothills of this volcano.
I mean, what are they eating up there? They're bugs, and what are they eating up there? It looks too hot for bugs to be.
The fumarole region, it's small patches.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the rim has very short, dense vegetation, grass, and shrubs, bushes, and they eat any of that. But it seems that they go.
That's probably where they're laying their nests and things too, or.
So yes, they like this area because it's warm on one side. So and being reptiles, and the energy from the surroundings to warm up and have the metabolism kick in. But also, the researchers were telling us that most turtles go down into the volcano. It's not active, into the rim where it's warmer, and they can lay their eggs to incubate. So it is part of the ecosystem. It is part of their life history, and pretty surreal. So I love it.
So the warmth really is the thing that's attracting them to the area.
I don't think so.
It fits into their agendas that they have.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, of the 5,000 tortoises that live in the volcano, maybe a couple 100 are near the fumarole. So.
Well, he's got a look on his face, and he's definitely a survivor.
If I was a turtle, I would be
a hardcore.
This place is pretty cool.
He's a hardcore doer.
Yeah.
That's for sure. That's really cool. I love it. You got any others? Tell us about the watering hole.
The watering hole.
These images behind us, you took on that night, right?
Yes,
Is that
correct.
what you did?
So
how did this
I'm not
happen?
sure if the camera covers it, but the 2 images on the sides, these are from watering holes in Namibia. I had a chance to go on an expedition to Namibia, teaching photography this time. That's another thing I do quite often, teach photo and video workshop. And Namibia is one of the driest countries in the planet, or it's got the oldest desert in the planet, and hence it's got some pretty dry areas. Etosha National Park being one of them. And that has a huge salt flat as well, sort of like the Salt Lake in Salt Lake City. So very dry, places where animals struggle to survive. And one of the things that these national parks or these reserves have done is build watering holes, or take advantage of existing watering holes and put some lights, because at night when it's cooler, animals come to play. Of course, in a dry and hot desert, you go out at night. So after the first campsite where I was near the collision, which was that photo, the lone rhino, I noticed that the watering holes were lit at night and no tourists were there because it's 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. Nobody wants to show up. It's cold, you want to go to bed. I started coming and I saw the animals showing up. And with these couple of lights that they had, it was a spectacle. So I go to the theater, a live theater at night, and then just the animals pop up. Amazing.
A watering hole opera.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then for being a photographer, I was like, okay, this is a unique photo thing. What do I need? My tripod, a little long exposure, or long enough that I can reveal the animal without the animal moving. Right? So that's one of the first ones I did, the one of the lone rhino watering hole. And then as we kept traveling around Namibia, other watering holes started popping up with lights, luckily. And then things like this happen. So I think we didn't cover it. But there's another hole in a national park. And it's beautiful because you see the animals not only approaching, but also there are the reflection of them on the water. Of course, I would have loved to be a little lower to have just a tiny slither of water and the reflection. But I'm photographing from the same distance of where the public needs to be. And it was amazing to see giraffes, rhinos, hyenas, elephants in these watering holes. And it's really about life of the watering hole.
Well, and it offers you an opportunity. This is one of those things where you have to seize that moment.
Yeah.
You have to be always looking for that new way you can represent the topic and seize that moment, and not just kind of follow the same, prescribed,
100%.
ideas that all photographers are looking for,
100%.
which is the base core of your,
It's the perfect example because I remember getting to these places and you have sunset, the golden hour, every photographer loves the dusty fields and gold everywhere in Honolulu. It's like, but then I was like, okay, that's been done. I did it. That's been done. What hasn't been done? So I started doing the night photo. And I sort of proud of myself of doing this maybe 6-8 years ago, because 2-3 years ago, series from Netflix, Earth at Night, I don't know if you guys have seen it, has the same story but in video. I didn't film it, I wouldn't have. But it's one of those things that, okay, the BBC or a big production company realized we need to film with watering holes at night because that's where life happens.
That's where it all happens.
Yeah. So I did it with photos, they did it with film later.
It's safer for these kinds of vulnerable animals to come at night.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. At the end of the day, they're out in the desert, out in the shade, relaxing, with food. And at night, they come to the
And it's cooler.
Yeah, for sure. And the whole family shows up, big hordes of elephant or giraffe.
Were you by yourself doing this, or did you have a crew with you?
For the trip, I had a group of 50 students, but when photographing, it was me by myself. Because once I told them, hey, I'm going to stay out at night, photographing animals that come to the watering hole. Wow, they all want to go there. We had already been on safari for the whole day, but we keep going.
That's where your passion project comes in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Because that's another little myth I have about like wildlife photographers. I don't know if you guys have that too. That they're like out in the jungle by themselves with a camera and all this. And then, I watched, I think it was my optics teacher, and he's talking about how he had like the Maasai tracking the animals for him and like leading him there, and there were like 20 people keeping him safe. And I'm like, okay, so that's kind of a myth of this like daredevil photographer out by himself hunting down these animals.
It happens both ways.
It happens both ways.
It happens both ways because oftentimes when you are working for a big client, there's a budget and time is of the essence.
Right.
Every day you're there, they're paying you, they're paying for gear rental, they're paying guides, food, lodging, all this stuff. So if it was me, I would love just to get paid to go sit down for a month and film with guys at a watering hole. But the production company is like, okay, how fast can you make it?
They have deadlines.
And under what budget can you do it?
Right.
So it's a business. But on the other side, on those passion projects, and I've done it a bunch, I just say, okay, I'm going to take 2 weeks off or 3 weeks off, and I'm going to go sit down in the forest and wait for the monkeys to show up. And guide them. And I spent hours on my time, my money. And then eventually the footage either I sell or I teach the story. It's the other way of doing it.
Right. Right.
So both sides work.
That's great because you can kind of scratch your own back, you know.
Yeah.
You get to do what you want, but you're still having fun with the things that you're getting hired to do.
For sure. And the other thing is that oftentimes the guides, the people who work, who leave and work at these places, really know the animal really well. And
so guides are important.
Huge.
Because you can also be disruptive to the environment.
100%.
You know, if you're just going out there, I think that bear guy in Alaska, remember him?
Yes.
You know, that people were very critical of because he was out there on his own and he's actually been really disruptive to the bear and eventually get price for it.
100%. And I've done it with wild pumas or mountain lions in Patagonia, southern Chile. Not only you're looking for a needle in a haystack, you're one cat, thousands of acres around you, but also it's a wild cat.
Right.
You know, she's hungry.
So you can sneak up on him.
You don't want to be the meal.
You don't want to be toast.
Exactly.
That's amazing. So, you know, but you haven't done just wildlife subjects. You've done a lot of like community subjects as well. And I mean, I watched one about a giant. It was fascinating.
Yeah.
I love that story. And you have stories about Colombian cowboys moving into the cattle, barefoot in their saddles, and you have stories about cocaine and coffee and gas smuggling, and you've done some really, really interesting topics. And some of those I think are your passion projects: gas smuggling, tractor, producer of that. Tell me about those stories a little bit. Do you have a favorite of these stories?
Well, it's hard to pick because they end up all being fun adventures.
Yeah, but especially in Europe.
Once you make it out, they become a fun adventure. Yeah. When you're in the midst of it, you're like, holy cow.
Yeah, because the gas smuggling is actually the thing that was a little dangerous.
That one was dangerous. That one was sketchy. That one was not fun while we were there because it's the border between Colombia and Venezuela in South America. Venezuela being a country that has a lot going on, very difficult social situation. And Colombia, and a lot of oil from Venezuela. So oil or gas there is super cheap. You can buy a gallon of gas for 10 cents, I think.
But the political instability.
But the political instability makes it hard. And also the gas smuggling. Because if you buy a gallon of gas for 10 cents in Venezuela, and that same gallon of gas costs $2 in the Colombian side, so there's a huge black market business there, right?
Right.
And it's tempting, but I was able to. So basically, when you bring a camera, everyone gets violent, especially in a legal situation.
Right.
And who owns the business? Hard to know, but there's power mafias from different corners wanting a piece of the picture. And then we were one to the camera. So we needed to very easily gain access, get the trust, also sneak into some of the situations that we found, and be able to tell the story.
And ultimately, you're taking part in the front. You're there, right? I mean, if the police stop you and stuff, and you're there with the camera, and you just say, hey, I'm just a journalist.
Well, as a journalist, you have freedom of speech. And
okay.
I thought you were hinting at, so for the story, what we did was we wanted to be on a smuggling run. So we talked to one of the smugglers, and this is not like there's 10 smugglers, there's hundreds of people who live off of this, and they generate their cars and build fake or this weird gasoline tanks in the trunk, and they take off chairs and they just make it into huge cars that are full of gasoline. So when they cross border, they have lots of gas. So we talked to one of them, and we were like, "Oh, well, would you mind if we tag along with you and follow you on a run?" And he was like, "Well, sure." So we tagged along with one gas smuggler. He went to the gas station. It takes 8 or 10 hours to do the line because so many cars wanting to buy gas. And that was the sketchy part, because when you're in line, there's people with arms. Taking care of it.
Right.
And
There were a
then-
couple times during the film that you had to like kind of turn off the camera, put
Yeah,
it down,
so we
and kind
have
of
a
like just
camera and
really play it cool.
we had a GoPro because play cool. We bought the gas, filled up the tank, went back to the Colombian side, so we got
So the gas.
so we just had the camera, but we were part of the operation.
Right.
Yeah. So
But is there some? I mean, would a government like Colombia or Venezuela, would they like go, oh, just the camera guy, or would you be held responsible for this?
well, that's always the big concern. How
It's a risk that you take.
Yeah, because an official government should follow freedom of speech and
Allow
allow you as a journalist. But we're not always dealing with the real deal, or the people from the government we deal with are not the best representatives of the government. So you're at risk, but at the end of the day, it's part of our job, and we tell the story, and it's fun once you go back home. But while you're doing it, you sweat a lot.
Yeah. For many reasons.
For all of it.
For all the reasons. You're not crazy.
I didn't have a baby back then, so
Yeah.
it didn't matter as much. But
So you're not going to be gas smuggling anymore because you have a newborn baby who's newly married and has a baby.
Yeah.
And lives where it happens. So
next is moving
Congrats on
on,
that.
but I have to do my baby off.
yeah. Which is a great one. So tell me about your current projects. I know that you've been working on vanishing primates.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So I love that project. Vanishing Primates is a new baby that I've been nurturing for the past 2 years. I won a National Geographic grant for that. That's how I became a National Geographic explorer. And basically what it is there's these 4 species of monkeys in Colombia that are critically endangered, as many other animals around the world. And having done a bunch of monkey documentaries before, I was a little tired of just the idea of generating awareness or educating the public, right? Because it's very difficult to measure. How do you measure awareness? How do you know that people who are watching these films are really better citizens of the world after hearing a conservation story? So
You have to ask the question, did anything change?
Did anything change? So 8 years of my career doing monkey films and freaking monkeys are still in there. So I was like, did anything change? Yeah. So I started thinking pretty hard and realized, okay, maybe if we can connect the audience, the public, emotionally with the monkeys, there will be more of a significant change. And to do that, I decided that I wanted to I'm designing like a pop-up theater. It's an immersive theater, maybe 30 feet by 30 feet, that when you walk in, it's a multimedia jungle. So you're going to the jungle where the monkeys live. But it's a multimedia. So imagine that we're here in the gallery, and every wall is covered with video and sounds of the jungle, or the ocean, whatever you want. And when you walk in, it's like getting in there with the animals, of course, without the mosquitoes, without sweating as much, without the deer, but you're there
Without the monkey spring branches down there.
Exactly.
Which they like to do.
Exactly. But you're there and you feel them, and we recorded with super high-end cameras. We also did 360 sound scapes. So we got this very nice microphone that records sound in 360. So when you play it back in a group like this, you can have things coming from the front, or the sides, or the back, and that gives you that idea of immersion. And the big component of the project is that for each person that goes through the media experience, this theater that we're building, we're going to plant 1 tree in the monkey.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, so it has direct impact.
Direct impact. So it's emotional connection with the animals, with our wildlife, the power, and direct tangible impact that we can measure on the ground. So we're hoping that in 1 month we can reach around 10,000, 8,000, 10,000 feet. If we can get the exhibit going for 6 months, we'll be around 15,000, 16,000 feet, which then becomes a good effort for the public.
And where will the exhibit be?
It's starting in Colombia, in Bogota, the capital, and I'm hoping we can tour it around the regions a little bit.
Okay.
It all depends on funding and partners and all that. And hopefully we can bring it to the US at least to a couple of locations.
Okay, so it's on the Art Museum for that one, right?
We're moving
I want to see that one.
Yeah.
What are the four species that?
Yes, so it's called top hammer. It's a big, beautiful hammer, small, beautiful hammer with a big white head. It looks like what they look like all the time, with a big puppet on top head. Brown spider monkey. So spider monkeys have these long, docile, very attractive monkeys.
Prehensile tail.
Yeah,
It's
prehensile
like
tail.
it's a,
And they love also grass.
it's like another arm.
Yeah, so beautiful monkey. The northern woolly monkey, it's like a chimpanzees of South America, these big, hairy, very agile monkey with the biggest sky birds of the Amazon and whatnot. And then the Kakapiki monkey, it's a smaller, very rare species, maybe only 400 left in the wild. So sadly, probably the first species that we'll see extinct.
A small area.
Yeah, super contained in a small area in the foothills of the Amazon. And we know very little of it, so hopefully we can.
Well, you've been out in the world in a lot of places with a lot of different kinds of foods. And so I feel like you probably have some insight about the condition of animal food at large and man's relationship to food, right? I mean, do you have any special things that you think about that you'd like to tell us about that?
Yeah, I think people are bringing it up. I don't want to be the downer here.
But let's get real.
Let's get real. I think the damage to the planet and the wildlife out there, it's bigger than we probably. And especially because most of the population don't have access to these school locations. And also because of the amount of media that we see of nature in good shape.
Right.
And the wildlife looking into the industry, blame a little bit, and that we're seeing all the streets of planet Earth and our planet and natural planet and all of this. And we see beautiful spectacles around the world. But
it's just, pushing the idea of biodiversity and spectacle and
version of wildlife.
Right.
But we don't know that next door there's a terrible social crisis that may eventually take over the animals or the forest, decimate everything. And sadly, when I was in the Masai Mara in Africa, Kenya, you are in the park, and it's as you would expect. It's amazing place. The landscape, the animals, everything is built like every film that you think of it. Lion King, the highest end of the world. But then you drive outside of the park, and the people are going through very hard situations. It's miserable.
Right.
And then you realize, well, there's only a fence that divides Eden from reality.
Right.
And eventually, something will collapse.
Slum life conditions you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. So things out there are nature that is struggling in Latin America, the Amazon, getting ravaged by the hour. Governments are not doing enough. It's a very toxic situation.
Some of these places, the governments are specifically working against them, against the environment.
Yeah. Governments don't care. They don't.
A lot of money involved with it. I mean, to get political, but
One of the issues I think is also that nature works in larger time span. So when we talk about global warming or extinction or ecosystem degradation or deforestation, we don't really see it in a generation time unless you are up front witnessing what's happening.
Okay.
People for the most
which
part,
is a minority.
but global warming has taken 20 years for us to realize, oh, this thing is real. And we could have stopped it 20 years ago, but we didn't because nobody stopped it. But now we're seeing the floods, the stronger snowstorms, the
That's in hurricanes.
crazy fire seasons, because the environment is changing. And people may still say, oh yeah, well, it's higher, but then the rent will come, yes. But that, the balance is changing. And if things are this bad with this move change, I don't want to see what's going to happen with that. And especially for my daughter. Because that's the other thing. We were always told, oh yeah, we need to preserve the environment for future generations to have it. I don't think that argument for
Right.
Well, I was the
We've all heard
generation, and now I'm the parent generation, and
That's right.
so yeah, it's dire.
Our children inherit that story.
Yes.
That it's their job to do it for the people behind them.
Yeah. But
You know, instead of just being independent, doing it now for yourself and for everyone, just for the sake of the planet.
People ask, like, what can I do? Maybe he's like a truck, or he's less meat. It's hard to tell exactly what you can do or tell people what to do. But it needs to be like hopefully it will be a big change in system, in society, the way we connect to nature and how we relate to the planet. Otherwise, there's only a certain amount of resources that we can do it. I guess we'll have to take more.
You know, I want to go to the audience and have people ask me some questions. I'm sure you have some questions yourself, things like that. But I want to touch on what you just said, because Federico, how do you feel about the idea that, you know, as an individual, I can be recycling, I can be doing less meat, I can be doing these things, but then you know, there's like sulfur plantations, and there's, you know, nuclear meltdowns, and there's oil drilling, and there's these massively destructive things that, like, I have no way of stopping other than like making my life less consumer oriented, but it's still there, and it does this mass damage. And then how does my little bit of changing my little bit of it makes me feel a little hopeless sometimes.
I do it every day. Honestly, like, being feel that I'm like, oh, I can't do what else can I do? Doing this monkey project, I will not say the monkey, of course, but not. But then I tend to say, okay, if you can make your surroundings a little better, and be vocal about it. For example, when I go to restaurants or programs here, I personally say, no straw. Like, I make a statement, no straw. And servers eventually like, oh, no straw. Here they serve you everything, 2 straws, not 1, 2.
And then you hand it back and throw it out.
And then they're out. So it's like, it's just a piece of plastic that was ready for the fact, because I don't think it's straw. So I make it on purpose, and I'm very vocal about it, and I say, it's for the planet.
Right.
So maybe that'll start sparking something. So when I go to the grocery store or to the gas station store, no plastic bags. And they're like, what? No plastic bags? Yeah, no plastic bags. For the planet. So
it's amazing how often because I do that too. I don't want the bag. I've got 3 items. I can carry it to my car.
exactly.
I can carry it from my car to the house. You know, like I can pile it up in my car.
So things like that make you feel better. Hopefully, start making a little impression around you. But at the bigger scale, of course, the politicians to have a bigger impact. And hopefully, we start to do that.
So voting is as important as recycling.
Yeah.
How you vote is that.
Yeah. Especially nowadays with such a political context.
So I'm going to open the floor to them. I have one last question for you. This is a question that I ask all my guests in this report. It's an important one for me and for our viewers. And that is, what advice would you give to emerging filmmakers, biologists, cinematographers, wildlife activists, or conservationists? What, you know, anyone out there who is working to have a career like yours, what advice would you give?
I think the one that has worked best for me is, I touched on it earlier, one follow your passion, but basically is pick one project, pick one story, one animal, one ecosystem, one idea that you want to find, and immerse in it. Go face full in, head first, and develop this story for a few months, try to team up with the organizations that work with those animals or those systems, and see.
Well, I think that's really important. Look for the people who are interested in the subjects that you are interested in. So
reach out.
For those entities and organizations.
Reach out and let's make sure they know that you're passionate about it and that you have a craft that you can offer. Oftentimes, the first few times it'll be free, or you can do it as an intern or as a volunteer. That's how I did my first month ago with the Contact. 10 years ago, that's a fun story. 10 years ago, when I was a grad student at Montana State, I did a multi-film, Habitat Memories. And it was on my dime. I reached out to everyone. It was a film for an institution, the organization that researches and protects the Contact Memories as well. 10 years later, 12 years later, actually, January, February, I got hired to go again and tell the exact same story about a big client in the US. Okay. So what started as a little pet project or a little passion with this idea, and I loved the monkeys and all that, 12 years later, became one of my biggest projects. Just because of the relationships I have built, because of the producers I had worked with them, I had verification and new animals, Colombia based, all of that. So don't look too far away. If you're in Door County, if you're in Wisconsin, if you're wherever you are, look around you, pick one project that you want to tackle, go head first, head in, all in, reach around your network, put some images, put some videos, use social media, and I'm sure that will be the key for a few projects on it. Hopefully. If it doesn't work, better.
Do our audience, does anybody in our audience have a question?
Besides your one project, what are you thinking about as the next project?
Oh.
So what's next for you?
Well, thank you for asking that. So the multi project is my pet project that I developed or not. My next personal project. I've been thinking about this two. One, I want to start going to these ecosystems where endangered animals are to hopefully bring travelers there, teach media workshops for the locals, for ours, to tell the story of these ecosystems. That's one. Bringing out these important stories from Latin America. And the second one is actually happening. It's not my pet project, but I've been involved super close, so I consider it from a line. We've been following a group of refugees from Afghanistan to Portugal. That's quite comfortable. And it's actually the youth soccer team of women from Afghanistan. It's girls between 14 to 18 years old, 17 years old, who had to flee Afghanistan at the end of the war. And they landed in Afghanistan, in Portugal, as refugees, and now they're building their life from scratch with population families. We've been following them for 2 months, and we'll see where that goes. So, a beautiful, intense story. Very
So in case the audience online didn't hear that, Seth asked the question that he has a very young daughter too, and he asked Federico, what are your plans for introducing your daughter to the natural world?
So,
good question.
I have a couple of plans. I don't know if they're good ones or successful. The second one of them I know hasn't been that successful because it's a thing to look at. But I think what I've been trying to do is just show her that we can have a great time. I shot a project earlier this year in Colombia about mangroves. So I had to travel into the mangroves, which are harsh ecosystems with mosquitoes, the heat, the water, the cold, plants that grow on stilts, so you can't step on anything, mud. And I wanted to figure out one day. And whether it was just simply touching the leaves or finding a little spider here and there and trying to make her be aware of this thing that's around her, I thought that helped making sure that she had a good time in nature, like enjoying nature. Which leads me to the second thing that I tried here, going out sledding with the little snow we had, but I think it was too cold and she didn't do it. So it doesn't really always work. I think, but the basic line would be try to teach kids that nature is an ally, it's a friend, it's something that we need, that we're connected to, and it's we're part of nature, and not something that's nature against, which is something that I sadly have seen a lot happening. Youth, kids, or young kids reacting very aggressively to anything nature because they think it's dangerous or not part of themselves. So that's what we call being part of it and we depend on it. It's not being.
I'm always shocked when someone says, "Oh, I hate snakes. Oh, I hate spiders," and I'm like, "Wow, look at that cool spider in my bathroom. This is so cool." You know, and I'm the kind of put this glass and has to take that stuff.
Yeah, well, it's understandable. I mean, not everyone likes crickets or animals or snakes or frogs for various reasons, whether media or phobias or whatever.
That experience.
But at the end of the day, they are as afraid of us as we are from them. Honestly, like if you see the snake flashes away. Unless it's a huge snake that's defending something, but what are the odds? So just treat them with respect, and they're probably going to be in the way before they look at it.
That's a great thing.
Yeah.
Their consideration that they are responsible for nature. And they have to serve have respect for them. Take care of the
Yeah, super powerful. That's super important because just to paraphrase a little bit from the audience, the indigenous communities, the native communities, not only in the US, but mostly around the world, have a deeper connection and understanding of our relationship with what's around us.
In a sense of stewardship.
And I think it's got to do a little bit with when you live off the land, and when you realize that you are part of nature, and you depend on the bees that pollinate fruit, the cherries around there, the apples, and the fish that migrate in the sea, birds and all that, you realize that you are just one part of nature. And that's basically what I was trying to say. It's like you become nature, not you are part of nature. And thanks for bringing it out because we need to be closer to our natural world.
Well, and it's obvious that the better the nature around us is doing, the better we are. And we're the ones that actually have the intellectual capacity to make things better as animals don't necessarily have the ability to make things better for themselves and their environment. They have to kind of cope with what they've got.
Yeah.
The tortoise and the elephant and kind of the lion or
Yeah, exactly.
example of that. So we actually can make it better.
We can make it better, and unfortunately, we can make it worse. So it's a double-sided sword in the sense that we are one of the few rational animals that is literally going self-extinct because we think that what we do does nothing. But
any other questions?
got a light one for you. What is your favorite animal and why?
Well, growing up, we're snakes. For some reason, I don't know. My mom worked with snakes, so that probably has to do with it.
You work with snakes in what capacity?
She worked at the National Geographic in California, producing the architect.
Oh, really?
She was a microbiologist, so she worked mostly on the chemistry or biochemistry problems. But I visited often her work.
So she affected how her children
100%.
felt about the nephew.
100%. I would go to this lab that had a bunch of things in cages because there was specifically kept interpreting to produce that to them. I loved it. It was like I could touch them. I could ESP. And nowadays, I would say maybe monkeys because I spent a lot of time top trees filming them while we're all moving. And it's impressive to see, newborns clinging to their moms, like 3, 4 weeks old. You have a newborn, you don't even know what to do. And babies are clinging to their moms, running around the trees, and it's very relatable to how we grow as humans and how they behave as monkeys. And it's very eye-opening.
Do you know that there's a song in New Orleans, a song about it explains the difference between
Oh, no, I didn't. No? Well, we go.
monkey and
There you go.
Dr. John has a, I don't know who wrote this one. And it's really just about speaking.
Great happy. Well, look it up. Yeah.
So for people online, just in case you didn't hear that,
It's called the monkey says.
Okay.
so Susan is mentioning that there's a song that's very popular in New Orleans culture called "The Monkey Says." It compares humans to monkeys, and it makes these comparisons like, well, the monkey never comes home drunk and eats with his wife, but the human does.
Yeah.
From what's recorded by Dr. John.
Every time I pet the monkey, something else comes. They grab something from their hair, ear, and they look at it, they taste it, and they turn away. Or it's like very,
They're very analytical.
yeah, and then there's something there happening. Maybe it's not an art class. There's a lot of fun.
Any other questions? Well, you guys, thank you so much for attending this online. Thank you for watching. Federico, thank you so much for taking time from your busy life to not only participate in the exhibit. This is the Wildlife Biennial XX. And it's going to be on display until December 30th. We'll be happier to have you in York County or interacting with us.
Here's the lesson. Thank you for having me. Thank you, you guys, for coming. Honestly, I like the balance.
Okay. I doubted you too. I bet he's going to get sent to somewhere and he's not going to show up.
I'm warm blooded. But no, thank you so much for coming, and thank you guys for doing a lot.
Thank you. Good night.